That's because the trot was better. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. And we want that to change, right? There it comes. You feel it change right there?
Yeah.
There. There you go. It's all right. You'll figure it out. Stick with it. There he comes. There it is. Nice. You know, even that was better. He went to the canner, tried to get to the canner there, but even that was better than what we had before. He kind of more rolled up into that rather than charging into it.
Yeah, it wasn't chopped.
Yes. Much better. Good. Back to your walk. Okay, now. So this is you're getting him to a point now where you can start to actually work with him. Where you could start to give him a little more direction as far as softening up, maybe trying to round up a little bit, trying to get some of that stuff done. And now he's in a position where he can kind of start to think about actually doing that and have it come together for you. So just this little bit that you did, all of a sudden now he's thinking differently. But it's just a way to do this without having to fight with him over it. Without having to be in his mouth all the time or doing whatever. We can step in and just guide him a little bit and let him work himself through it. All you're doing is you're directing the energy. Rather than trying to stop the energy or do something else, you're just kind of taking it and you're directing it, and you're taking what you don't want. You're not telling him that's wrong, because you may need that at some point. So you're not telling it's wrong or bad. You're just directing it down to the thing that you do want. Okay? So yes, this field here is much more amenable to what we can, so we can take that forward and start working on it and getting other things done. This thing here is, if the house was on fire, we may need that, but we don't need it for this. So it's that idea. Let's see if we can get him. You rather than the situation controlling you, you're controlling the situation by doing something very simple. and letting him work through it to get to a point where he can just relax. He can use the energy because he needs to. He wants to use this energy. I mean, if it was up to him, he'd be going as fast as he could go, for as long as he could do it. So what you're doing basically is just saying, well, we can't do that, but we can do this. This you can do. Just blow off all the steam you want to blow off. We'll do it under control so that you can keep your feet under you, you can keep your mind here, and then we'll kind of play with some other stuff. But it's a nice way for you to do it without getting him more and more cranked up, letting him expend that energy. So this looks good now. So all of a sudden now your trot's starting to look a lot better. He's starting to feel like maybe you could round that up a little bit. He could round it up. The canter's starting to look better. Your transitions are starting to look better. So everything's starting to come together finally. And it didn't really take that long. So just let him walk around for a little bit so that he can take a breather. And this is a big part of this, is just getting him moving enough to where he can breathe. That in and of itself will take that edge off of him. So, whether it's a human or a horse, either one, when we don't breathe, or we breathe real shallow like he was doing before, what that does is that it starts to create chemical reactions in the body. And these chemical reactions are like dominoes that trip over. And when the last domino trips over, what ends up happening is you go from the thinking part of the brain into the instinctive part of the brain. That's where he was. And he was there because he wasn't breathing very well. Okay, so it becomes I don't want to say it's a fear thing, but it's a worry thing, which is the beginning of fear. Okay? So if he starts to worry about, you bring his buddy with him, and we take him away, and then he starts to worry about his buddy. That's the beginning of the fear part. So there's a process that kind of happens. So that's the sort of starts the part in there where the worry starts to come in, and that's where the breathing starts to become shallow. And then once the breathing becomes shallow, then everything else becomes a problem. Okay, and then all it takes is one little thing, this horse banging against the fence or whatever. I mean, it could be anything. I'm just using that as an example. For him to trip over from worry to fear. And then the fear happens, and now we're not breathing and we're not thinking. You can still think in the worry stage. Once you get into the fear stage, you can't think anymore. And so that's that process, and it all begins with the lack of breathing, the lack of oxygen coming into the body. And there's nothing you can do to change that part of the thing. Now, you can work with him, like we talked at the very beginning. You work with him, you install some things in here where when you start to play with him a little bit, he starts to have this trouble. Okay, well, we're going to just come in here, maybe we're out on the trail or whatever. He starts to have that trouble. Let's do a little serpentine right here where we're standing. That feels better. And now we're off again. But we start to install a couple of things so that if he starts to have that trouble, you can put something there that comes from you to him, and he can go, oh, yeah, I know what this is. Okay. As opposed to just letting it all go and hoping for the best, which generally doesn't help very much. So, but that's the process he's going through. So when he came in here, it wasn't so much that he was afraid as much as he was worried. So the worry starts to happen, and there's different levels of that. He was sort of on a scale, say from 0 to 5, he was up there around a 4. Once you get to 5, it trips over into fear. So this guy is the same thing, but his is down around a 2, 1, 2. Okay, so he worries about these other horses, but it's kind of at this level where he's got to turn and look and make sure they're still over there, and make sure they're still over there, and then make sure they're still over there, that kind of thing. And the thing with him, if I'm not careful, because I've let him do that in the past, where if you need to look, that's fine. But eventually he'll just start taking me over there, and that's not okay. So that worry comes on. That's kind of, this is a lower level of what you had before. His was a little bit higher. You know, with this guy, I just basically I'm doing the same thing. I'm just not doing the circle part of it. We're just doing other things, right? We're just moving from here to here, kind of thing. You know, we're just doing something other than, you know, but stuff that I want to be able to do later on anyway. I may need this to open a gate, for instance. I'm not just keeping him busy. I'm actually doing stuff that I may need later. You know, this kind of movement here, I may need that. I use it actually a lot when I'm working with another horse from the ground. You know, that's on the ground and I'm working on his back. I use this kind of thing if I need to move this horse or do whatever. So I'm using things that I'm going to need later. I'm not just, a lot of times folks will say, well, you got to get his feet busy. Well, yeah, but that doesn't really help you with anything. There's no purpose behind that. Getting his feet busy won't help. Won't change his mind. Won't get him turned. So I don't want to work him too hard because it's warm today, you know, on this. So I'm stopping to give you breaks so that he can kind of cool off and so that we aren't running him into the dirt. So now that we've got this working a little better, this is where we can maybe start looking at transitions, seeing how those feel to you. Anything that doesn't feel the way you want it to feel, anything that doesn't feel the way you want it to feel, that is when you would start to do that low turn.